Does my hair look pretty today? I just really want it to look pretty today. Anyway, is this better? I still think this is better. It's the face part. It's the face part that makes it bad. Hey. It's Monday again, and I am back here to talk about stuff and things. And yeah, so that's my thing, because I'm Jess, and we're talking about life and stuff and things. God, I'm really good at this, guys. I'm like the best YouTuber you've ever seen, right? Like, oh man, let's hear the words of wisdom. So, what do I want to talk about this week? One thing that seems to come up over and over again, especially like being in Idaho, which I've been in Idaho for the last month, and grew up in Idaho. It's a beautiful, beautiful state. My hometown is full of amazing, wonderful, compassionate people. I love every single one of them. The thing about Idaho is that there's not a lot of diversity here. Super crazy. There's men and women, sure. You get the occasional speckle of people that come from different backgrounds, but the majority of us are white, and the majority of us are some form of Christian or Mormon. And because of that, the influences on the culture here is very traditional. I feel like that's a good thing to talk about. The traditional values that we hold true may not be as accepting of other lifestyles or other ways to exist in life. So for example, I have a non-traditional type of marriage. My husband and I are polyamorous, and trying to explain that to other people is a difficult thing to do in Idaho. So in Idaho, if you are in a relationship with one person and then decide to take up a relationship with somebody else, that is cheating. That is 100% always going to be cheating. And that's not necessarily true for a lot of relationships. I was talking today with one of my friends. That's what I always do. I talk with a friend about something, and it sparks, this discussion in the long run about how we go about telling our children that we're polyamorous, because it is such a different lifestyle that you don't really hear about very much in traditional places like Idaho. And I think that it's very easy. I think it's really easy to have that talk with your kids, to be honest. And I think every parent should have that talk with their kids about relationships. I think that if we start having conversations with our kids about the different types of relationships that can develop in adulthood or in as a teenager, that'll stop a lot of the frustration and misunderstanding and concern that parents express and kids express and other adults express as they come into contact with those different lifestyles. So I will give you an example of the conversation that I had with my son. Take it as you will, but I think that it's a really good topic of discussion, especially in a place where your religious background causes a lot of concern for other people, because that's a way to look at it. I grew up Christian, and I love everything about the upbringing that I had in my faith. It made me into an extremely compassionate person, and it formed really strong morals for me. And the biggest thing about it that I learned while I was growing up was that to follow Jesus and to do as Jesus would want means to accept people where they are and just love them as they are. So I think that as a person who is faithful, as a person who, whatever religion it is that you follow, I think that it's important to recognize that your role as a Christian is not to pass judgment or to be angry or abusive towards people that are different from you. It's just to accept them and love them. So this is what I did with my son. He was about 8 when I had this talk with him. We were driving in the car one day, and that's the best place to have any conversation with your kids, especially like deep conversations, just for the record, for like every conversation I have with my kid that is a deep conversation, best ones are always in the car. So anyway, we were driving in the car, and I said to him, hey Gray, what do you know about relationships? Like, what do you know about adult relationships? And he, being the awesome Washingtonian kid that he is, said he knew that a boy and a girl could get married, adults, and a boy can get married, and a girl could get married. So far, so good. My kid, he understands that there are people that are same-sex that can fall in love. So I feel like in that moment, like, awesome parenting on my part. But there are also other things that kids are missing when they describe relationships that way. So I talked to him about how there can be two people that get married. Yes. There can be two people that love each other and don't get married. Instead, they decide to just live together. And I used examples of friends that we had who were not married. And then I told them, you know, people can fall in love that are people of different color skin, or different color hair, different color eyes. It doesn't matter what color you are or what you look like, you can just fall in love. Then I reminded him, because we talked about this before, that people can have a penis and be a girl, or people can have a vagina and be a boy, and those people can fall in love with whoever they want to fall in love with, and they can get married or not get married, and we talked about that some more, so he could kind of like remember, like, oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of different genders that exist, and I don't think he knows the language yet to describe that. I don't think that we've really talked about cis versus trans, but just recognizing, like, oh yeah, a boy doesn't have to be somebody that has a penis, a girl doesn't have to be somebody that has a vagina, like, you can still have that talk with. Anyway, so we talked about that, and then once he kind of understood all of those things, then I added the layer of polyamory onto it. What I did in that discussion was just saying, so you understand love can be between two people who are whatever race, religion, we talked about a little bit about religion too, but that's a lot, spiritual views, two people of different genders, two people of the same gender, all of those things. And then we talked about how it's possible to love more than one person at a time. Just like mom and dad love all three of our kids at the same time. And just like he loves both mom and dad at the same time, two adults can have romantic love for more than one person at a time. And that is called polyamory. And we broke down what the word means. Poly meaning many, amory meaning love, so many loves. And we talked about how in polyamory, people who love more than one person at a time, they tell those people that they love them, or that they are, whether or not they're loving them, but you know, it's 8-year-olds, so it's love. But they communicate that love with the people, all the people that they love, so that there's no secrets, there's no lying, it's just the ability to love more than one person. And, you know, he got it. He totally understood it. Didn't have any problems with it. He was just like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. I feel like if we can do that with kids, we can do that with adults too eventually. But if we start with kids, we can work our way up. Yeah, it was a really easy conversation. He totally understood everything I said. Later, I had a follow-up conversation with him. Hey, Gray, do you remember all the stuff we said? Okay, well, what do you remember? And he basically went through and said it in, you know, 8-year-old language. You know, boys can love boys, girls can love girls, people can get married, people cannot get married. Then you could also love more than one person at a time. And I said, okay, well, what's that called when you love more than one person at a time? He's like, oh, polyamory. And it was like a big lights going off everywhere. And then we talked again about how important it is when you love more than one person at a time to have everyone know those things, because otherwise that's keeping secrets, that's lying, and that's unethical. Which he doesn't quite know the word unethical yet, but I feel like if I use that word around him, eventually he'll start picking up on like when ethical is good and when unethical is bad. That's how kids learn language. Or he could just ask me the meaning of it. We can have that conversation too. Every child should have this talk with their parents. And if you're scared of having that talk with your kid because it makes you really uncomfortable, by all means, like, let them watch this video. I don't think that allowing other people to exist and love as they choose to exist and love is a bad thing. You can tell people what you think is right or what you've been taught, how you interpret the Bible. That's absolutely your prerogative to do that. However, the choice to follow that interpretation is on us. In conclusion, Idaho is a wonderful state to live in. Idaho is a place that does not have a lot of experience with different types of relationships. And that doesn't make it wrong, doesn't make it bad. It just means that we have some work to do on understanding each other and understanding how love is something that exists on a spectrum, just like everything else. There's so many different things. It's not all black and white, and that's okay. It's okay if you view it as black and white. It's not okay if you take your views and force them onto someone else. I feel like that got really lecture-y. I didn't mean for it to get lecture-y. I just thought that it would be a really good thing to discuss, especially being a parent and trying to raise my kids to be loving and accepting of others. Oh, also, I have an email address that I put on my YouTube about me thing. If you guys ever had questions or want me to talk about specific topics, I'm more than happy to talk about those things. So by all means, please email. I'm gonna eventually have a Twitter account too, because that's a thing people do. That's all I got. Tune in next week to see what weird topic Jess chooses next. Okay, bye.